Hi everyone, Kim West here. I'm here today to talk with you about the pelvic floor. We're going to talk a little bit as well as go through some exercises. So the pelvic floor, I do workshops on this a lot because there's a lot to dive into. So I'm trying to make this a brief overview as best I can. And pelvic floor health is super important for women's health and men's health. So if we don't have a toned or healthy functional pelvic floor, we can have incontinence, we can have prolapse of the organs, which is extremely common in women, especially after having babies, especially after menopause. And you can also have lower back pain, hip pain, knee pain, because you're not quite organized through your pelvis. If you've had any kind of abdominal surgery, your pelvic floor might have been affected. So it's really important to understand your pelvic floor and to really be in touch with the pelvis, right? And the womb space, especially as a woman. This is our space of creativity, of life, of sensuality, and it really shouldn't be ignored. So I'd like to first start by just describing briefly the anatomy, so you have a bit of a visual. So if you think of the inner unit as your core, lots of times when people say, I have a strong or weak core, I want to work my core, they're talking about like their six-pack abs, and that's not what I'm talking about. So your inner unit core is basically comprised of 4 parts. The first part is your diaphragm, which is your breathing muscle, and this is like a jellyfish. The way that it looks and moves, and it's moving up and down, contracting and releasing as air moves in and out of the lungs, right? So as I inhale, my lungs expand with air, so the diaphragm drops, gets out of the way, and then as I exhale, the diaphragm contracts and pushes the air up and out. That's towards the top of the inner unit. At the bottom is the pelvic floor, right? The base of the pelvic bowl. So you have the diaphragm and the pelvic floor. So again, they're working together. So as I'm inhaling, air comes into my lungs, my diaphragm, pelvic floor widens, and the organs drop a little bit. As I exhale, the pelvic floor narrows, lifts, and the pelvic floor draws up, my body narrows. That also fits in with the deepest abdominal layers. There's 4 layers of abdominals. The layer that matters for inner unit support is called transverse abdominals, and they wrap around you like a corset. So it's about from here to here and wrapping around you horizontally, so it's on your back as well. The 6-pack that people think of is your most superficial layer. It's not so involved in inner unit support. So again, when you're breathing, the diaphragm and pelvic floor drop, the transverse opens, everything is widening when we inhale, right? The intra-abdominal pressure is increasing, and then when we exhale, the pelvic floor lifts and the body narrows, the transverse abdominals come in and hug the spine. Inhale, everything opens, 360. Exhale, everything draws in and up. The last part of the inner unit is your multifidi, which are some tiny muscles that run along the spine. So having that postural support through your spine is important to this inner unit functioning in a healthy way. Okay, so that's the basics, very basics on the anatomy. The pelvic floor has a lot of strong muscles and tissues, fascias, and ligaments that make it up and create that strong pelvic floor for us. For the pelvic floor to be healthy, it needs to have buoyancy, it needs to have a bit of spring, it needs to know how to completely relax, expand on the inhale, completely engage, fully engage, lift on the exhale, right? It needs to have those extremes to be healthy, just like any muscle group in the body. So a hypertonic pelvic floor, super tight pelvic floor, just like a tight jaw, a tight shoulders, not so healthy. A collapsed, loose, checked out pelvic floor, also not healthy, right? So we tend to overdo it in our society. Oh, I'm going to tighten my pelvic floor, and then there's all sorts of problems that come from that because you're clenching too much, okay? So, there's more I could say on that, but that's the basis. So let's go through a breath exercise. As you might imagine, The basis for understanding and feeling your pelvic floor is through a breath practice, first and foremost. I'll talk briefly about Kegels before we go into that. What we know of today as Kegels tends to be sort of a quick lift, squeeze tight, and then let go quickly. And I'm not really a fan of that. The original Kegel exercise came from a doctor who had this contraption that you put inside and you hold it, and so it would measure the strength of the pelvic floor. What we do nowadays is just kind of like squeeze as if you're holding in pee and let it go quickly. What I think is more effective is the endurance and holding the pelvic floor for a longer time. If you think about it, our inner unit, our pelvic floor, multifidi along the spine, deep abdominals, diaphragm, these are slow twitch muscle groups. They have endurance, right? So I can sit here with fairly good posture for a pretty long time because of these endurance postural smaller muscle groups. However, if I need to get up and run somewhere quickly and get away from someone that's attacking me, then I'm going to need my glutes and my quads to fire up and take me. Those are fast twitch muscles that can have a lot of power to move me quickly, but don't have a lot of endurance. I can't run at that level of power for a very long time. So with the Kegels, why would you squeeze tightly and release quickly? For me, I feel that it needs to be a longer sustained mindful hold to cultivate that strength and buoyant pelvic floor. Okay, so let's go through a breath exercise. So if you imagine, this is a breath that's tracing through your body. If you imagine your inhale begins above your head and you feel the air come down and trace it down your body all the way down to your pelvic floor, allow your belly to expand, and then exhale, draw the belly in, trace the breath up and out through the crown. So repeat that. Inhale, tracing the breath down. Inhale, big Buddha belly. Exhale, belly draws in. The breath comes up and out. A couple more on your own timing. So you could do that for a while if you needed to really sense what's going on, but maybe you felt when you inhaled your sits bones widening, your pelvis widening, your belly filling with air, and as you exhale, the air leaves the belly and draws up. So the exhale is the key. The longer we can sustain an exhale, the more lift we can find in the pelvic floor and the reproductive organs, all the organs really, and the more power we have. So if you're doing any sort of exercise, and when you get to the difficult part, that's when you really want to harness the power of your exhale. And if you're in a class and you're being reminded, don't forget to breathe, or you're reminding yourself, I would say think about the exhale. Don't even worry about the inhale. It will happen. I mean, hopefully it'll happen. But focus on your exhale. Empty your lungs so you really go to the end of the exhale. Don't deprive yourself of that full exhale, and then the inhale will feel so much more full and spacious because it's coming from somewhere deeper. It will happen very effortlessly and naturally, and then a little more effort on the exhale. And that will also help you feel your tummy muscles draw into your body. So you create more of that support, and you'll feel the abdominal muscles hug around your spine in all directions. Okay, let's repeat the breath exercise that we just did, but now we'll add a lift of the pelvic floor that's a bit more conscious, where you're really feeling the muscles of the pelvic floor. So begin the same way. Inhale from the top. Let the belly expand at the top of the inhale. And then exhale, draw the belly up. Feel the pelvis narrow and lift the vagina. Lift the pelvic floor. Keep lifting. Imagine you're exhaling all the air out and your organs keep lifting as long as they can. And then inhale, let it go. Sits bones widen, pelvic floor widens. Exhale. And you can think of holding in urine if that helps. Hold, keep exhaling the air out to feel the lift of the pelvic organs, and then release, widen. One more time. Exhale, empty the lungs. Let the belly draw in. Let the organs lift up. It's more towards the end of the exhale that you might feel the lift up, right? That can take a while to feel. And then just return to natural breath. I'm going quite quickly, so don't worry if you don't feel this right away. Just envision it, and with time it will become more obvious. So if we bring this into an actual exercise, let's say, for example, a Pilates exercise, like a low ab exercise, I'll show this lying on my back, and I'll grab a prop like a bolster or a ball or a blanket, something to lift your pelvis up. Take a moment here with your hands on your belly and inhale and feel your belly expand underneath your hands, just like we did before, and then exhale, feel the belly drop away from the hands. Do that a couple more times. And next time that the exhale happens, you feel the power of the low belly coming into your body, then float one knee over the hip into tabletop. You can keep your hands on your belly if it helps to feel that activation, or you can just bring the arms down by your side. For the next one, you'll need a stronger exhale. So as you exhale, float the knee in and feel your belly muscles soften down into your body, soften towards your spine, I should say. So you're not popping your chest out or popping your belly out, right? You're always thinking of the exhale drawing things closer to you, drawing the abdominals and the organs closer to your spine. From here, you might do some toe taps. So as you're exhaling on the harder part, lower one foot towards the mat, inhale to float in. Exhale, other leg. Inhale to float in. Exhale to lower. Inhale, floating in. Exhale to lower on the exertion. Inhale to float in. You could add to this, exhale to extend one leg. Inhale to float in. Exhale, reach. Inhale in. Exhale, belly draws in and up. Inhale. Exhale, belly draws in and up. Inhale. Relax the knees into your chest and just circle your knees so you get this nice movement of your hips. This is also really important to have mobile hips. This will really help your pelvic floor be more functional. And you can go the other way with your circle. And then remember, we want the pelvic floor to be buoyant and springy, not necessarily think of the word strong, but buoyant. So if we want to have a buoyant pelvic floor, we want to let it stretch and relax as well. So you might take a happy baby pose, which is where your feet might face the ceiling and you hold on to your big toes or your shins, or you might just hold on to your knees. Just any position where your legs are far apart so you can get that nice stretch into your pelvic floor, into your adductors. And you might play around with straightening the legs, bending, or moving side to side, whatever feels good there, and drawing back in. Okay, so that was a very brief look at how you can connect with your pelvic floor, and you can, again, I would just choose one to focus on. If it's just the breath visualization, start with that until it's starting to feel familiar and you're starting to see the visual, and maybe start to feel the pelvic floor, and then you might add on some of the exercise work. I encourage you to work slow and to focus on your exhale. If you have any questions, reach out. I do private sessions and people need more customized support. And yeah, I hope this is helpful. Have a great day.